morning, everybody. You know what? I forgot to mute everybody's microphones. So could you please mute yourself? I am discombobulated this evening. I've got these people dressed in scary costumes knocking on my door demanding candy. My wife is fending them off. I can only see out of one eye. I don't know what's going on. And I just flew in from Missoula, Montana. I got home about 2 hours ago and visiting my brother in Missoula. So I am behind on all my emails and all my phone calls and all my texts. If you've been trying to get a hold of me today, it's because I think I'm dressed as a pirate. Hold on a second. Let me see.
What it looks like.
Yeah, that is what it looks like. Let me get rid of that here. Let me get rid of that. None. No. There we go. Hey, welcome everybody. This is VBC Happy Hour. I am Todd DiPastino. I'm the director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. We're a nonprofit based here in Pittsburgh, PA. We've been around for 14 years, holding events like this in person and online, where veterans can come and share their stories. And we hold them usually as breakfasts here in Western Pennsylvania. And as of 2020, we started holding them online. And we just, there's no agenda except to learn. I think, from my perspective, not being a veteran, the only agenda is to educate and inspire the public, people like me, to learn a little bit about the military experience from all points of view. So we've been doing that since 2008, and it is a fascination and a wonder. And with me as my wingman tonight is Glenn Flickinger. Hello, Glenn. How are you?
Todd, I'm great. I'm great. You want to guess what I'm dressed as?
A boring retired banker.
Oh, I really object to the boring and retired, maybe, but the banker part, those are fighting words.
If you're a dinosaur.
Yeah, I think.
Those are fighting words.
Yeah.
Okay, Todd, I know where you live.
Yeah, and in case my plane was delayed today, Glenn was going to be handling this program on his own, and I sent him a text from the airport saying, "Hey, we should be good to go." So thank you, Glenn, for being on standby and also for being wingman tonight.
I can't imagine what a disaster it would have been if I had to do this program. Because you know me, I like to be prepared. I had no idea what was going on tonight.
And I'm going to need to. Oh boy! I'm going to ask people. Could you please mute yourselves if you can? I'm working the room here to see. Oh, we got somebody coughing. Let's see here. All right. I'm looking around. Oh, there, Michael. Hey, Michael, how are you? I'm going to mute you so we don't hear you cough. Good to see you. Okay. All right, Glenn. And it's especially gratifying that you're with me tonight because you are doing a program tomorrow night, correct?
Exactly. Greatest Generation Live, second week in a row. How you like that, huh?
Second week in a row.
2 weeks in a row. Last week was Jack Boakey, which was pretty interesting. This, a little bit more formatted, structured like our normal programs, but really looking forward to this. And this came from an idea from Henry Shepke. I don't know if Henry's on the call tonight, but Henry suggested this early this year. And I finally followed up on it a few months ago, read this book by James Campbell, the author, who's going to be on tomorrow night, and was just fascinated by it. It's really well written. James is a journalist and a very good journalist, writes incredibly well. This is the story of the 32nd National Guard Division from Wisconsin, which is why the Wisconsin Veterans Museum is co-hosting with us. And Chris Kolakowski, the director of the museum, will be on. And Chris turns out to be an author of military history and quite the historian, director of the MacArthur Museum before this and director of the George Patton Museum before that. So great program about a very little known battle that takes place at the same time as Guadalcanal, but gets very little mention in the history books. So,
and is that the battle of, would you call it Buna Beach?
Well, not Buna Beach, Battle of Buna, really.
Of Buna.
Yeah, that's
Buna.
what it's mostly referred to, right? Buna
Okay.
being a village on the north coast of New Guinea. This is the opening battle of the New Guinea campaign, which then goes on for 2 years.
And the only association I have with this battle of Buna is that I believe the first photograph of American war dead ever published was published from Buna, from the beach on Buna, and I think it was 2 members of this division who were killed. And the photograph appeared in Life magazine in September 1943, I think.
I'm not familiar with that.
It was a real turning point in how the war was being publicized or presented to Americans back home.
Yeah, that I'm not familiar with, but what's fascinating is this is the first Army division to see combat in World War II, way before the torch landings in November of 42 in North Africa, right? And it's so little known, so little publicized, and the battle is just as ferocious, just as terrible, if not more so, than Guadalcanal. The Army guys will tell you the Marines just had better publicists, which Brad would tell you is right.
You're just picking a fight, Glenn. You're I see Brad Washabaugh here, who just completed the Marine Corps Marathon yesterday, Brad.
Yeah, I just completed it yesterday. Thank you. And here's the medal to show for it.
Oh, wow. That's a big piece of hardware.
And geez, it opens up.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, Todd, the storyline yesterday was, I didn't know this, but I was the only runner of 20,000 plus that was running that race, that ran the first one in 1976.
Whoa, are you serious?
Yeah, and that got me in the VIP tent and a handshake by the Commandant of the Marine Corps. So
that is so cool, Brad.
That is really cool.
It was a great event. I ran with friends and met friends, and it was a nice day, nice and sunny. The only thing was, it was 26.2 miles, and it took a while.
So they're not making those marathons any shorter, are they?
No. But it was a great. It was the 47th Marine Corps Marathon, and I'm working on my goal to run the 50th here in a few years. And it was a fantastic event. Just many stories to see. They have a blue mile out there, of a mile of pictures of fallen servicemen and women, with a lot of relatives standing beside their picture. It was really moving. And of course, it was done by the Marine Corps, so it was top notch.
And you were not the oldest person to complete that race, were you?
No,
I'm not saying. Okay.
No, I'm working on that, but not right now. Yeah.
You're not there yet. Okay,
No.
Great. Oh, that's so neat. Well, congratulations, Brad. It's wonderful. And before I get to Jeff Witherall, I do want to let people know that this is Halloween Open Conversation. I see many people here who have not joined us in a while or at all before. I see Dale Ann Edmiston is going to be she's an author who writes about military experience. You're going to be talking about a book that you're working on and past books that you've written before. Hello, Dale Ann. Good to see you. And Irene Harrell is with us. I met Irene last week at our breakfast in Bethel Park, PA. Thank you, Irene, another writer. I see James McCormick, 3-time Purple Heart recipient, Silver Star recipient, and also the commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. James McCormick is joining us for the first time. James, thank you so much. We'll be hearing from him. I see Mike Mayer. Mike, long time no see, buddy. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And John Kramer is going to be talking too. I asked him to come on and share some of his information about, he's an Air Force veteran on surveillance, photograph analysis and interpretation. So, and then Michelle Fisher. Is Michelle with us? She's with the Veterans Administration, the VBA.
Yes,
Michelle,
I'm here.
Oh, hey, Michelle, thank you
Hey,
for joining us.
Yes,
I'm sorry I didn't call you
That's
back
okay.
today. I
That's
was
okay.
on the road.
That's
And
okay.
Michelle is going to be sharing some information about the PACT Act. and we should. Sue Watson, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you.
I'm outside handing out candy.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah, those little kids demanding candy.
Yeah,
Jeez. You have something to announce too tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. I'll go with that. We have tomorrow, is that Wednesday? No, on Wednesday. We have a little extra time at our place. We're open from 10 until 6. Then we'll shut down VHV and have a little happy hour. But we're trying to open so that, more people who want to stop by have a chance to stop by a little later. So that's Veterans Helping Veterans in Homestead.
Veterans Helping Veterans in Homestead at what time on Wednesday?
We'll be open from 10 until 6 on Wednesday. And then at 6 o'clock, we'll really shut down the Veterans Helping Veterans business and open for a happy hour. So veterans, spouses, caregivers, friends, we'll all be there.
Great. Thank you so much, Sue. And please put the info, if you can, in the chat here, and we could share it more broadly. Hey, Jeff Witherell, how are you?
Real fine. Todd, how you doing?
Good. Did you just recommend that you put something in the chat? Do you do trick or drink?
Yeah. Old people do trick or drink. They don't do candy. They do trick or drink.
Oh, so you're not handing out candy tonight?
No, the sheriff just went by the house, so I had to pull back. So
okay.
I'll drink to that.
Okay. Chad says I'll drink to that. How you doing, Jeff?
Yeah, real fine. The reason why I put my hand up was Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other division that was in that area was the 41st. But I think the 41st, that was another National Guard division, but I think that was in Australia as a backup. And the only thing they had between the Japanese and Australia, I think, was the Stanley Mountain Australians and the 41st sitting in Australia. And then you had the 32nd up there in New Guinea. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I believe that's right. I believe the 41st arrived. The 32nd was the first Army division to be deployed to Australia.
Yeah.
Think about it. A bunch of kids from Wisconsin going to the jungles of New Guinea.
Yeah.
Totally ill-equipped, no training, nothing.
No.
MacArthur throws them in when the Japanese almost take Port Moresby in the fall of 42. The 41st is held back in Australia and never makes it to New Guinea until after the Battle of Buna.
Yeah, because I was going to add to that. Well, my whole background is my dad was in the 6th Infantry, and they were up there in Hollandia and those places west of Buna and everything. But people don't realize, like Glenn was saying, these National Guard outfits are, basically untrained people with old equipment and everything like this, very minimal training in that. And they got to go up against the Japanese in Buna. And these guys, have been running around the Pacific, for a number of years, these guys, especially when you're talking about the Guadalcanal. The one unit at Guadalcanal was, I think it was called the 28th Regiment out of China. And they were fighting the Russians in Manchuria, and they got shipped down to Guadalcanal to fight the Americans. So they had to be pretty good cracker outfits, some of these Japanese outfits.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, at this time of the war, these were the top of the line Japanese outfits before they were decimated, later in the war. Yeah.
Hey, I want to go to our sponsors and before I forget, thank our sponsors for sponsoring this event. Tobacco Free Adagio Health, of course, has been a long time sponsor, and you can find out about the work that they do, helping people quit smoking, helping to encourage policies that create better, safer places to live, work, and play. And you can find out more about their quit line and about what they do at tobaccofree.adagiohealth.org. And we are also sponsored, of course, by D&D Auto Salvage and Metal Recycling. They have been a longtime sponsor, and they will be sponsoring also our upcoming breakfast in Penn Hills, which is an eastern suburb here in Pittsburgh, on November 18th. D&D Auto Salvage, they've been around for 50 years. They have locations in Tarentum and Lawrenceville. They do metal recycling, they do auto salvaging, and they are a state-of-the-art metal recycling and auto salvaging company. And you can find out more about their rates and about what they do at dndautosalvage.com. That's dndautosalvage.com. We have a magazine, VBC magazine. It is out. It is our fall issue. We are sending boxes hither and yon so that people can spread the magazines around. They are free of charge. We love to send them out to people. This is where we put in writing the stories that we hear at our events. This one has Sandy Ortega as our cover story. If you have not received one of these magazines, it's because we don't have your address, or I've also know that some in the shipping have gotten mangled. So if you didn't receive a complete magazine, let us know. If you didn't receive a magazine at all, let us know. We'd be happy to send one out to you. And if you would like us to send you 20 or 30 or 40 to distribute to your local veterans groups, your American Legions, your libraries, we would love to do that also. This is the major advertising that we do. So you could let me know. You could put it in the chat that you like a magazine, or you could email me at Todd, TODD, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. That's Todd, TODD, veteransbreakfastclub.org. And before I go on with our guests, and I think I want to start with John Kramer, I do want to show you these pictures that I just took a few hours ago. I was on a plane from Dallas, flight 1868, from Dallas to Pittsburgh, American Airlines, and they announced when we got on the plane that there were remains of a service member who was killed in action on the plane in the cargo hold, and the casket was going to be delivered to Pittsburgh, and it had an escort. A young staff sergeant was escorting the remains. When we took off, before we took off, there was a water salute from fire trucks over the plane. My window got wet, so I took pictures, but you can't see anything because the window's all wet. And then when we landed, this is what awaited us: this honor guard with a hearse, and two people I think worked at a funeral home. These, I believe, are relatives there. The honor guard then proceeded to the cargo hold while we all sat in our seats, even though the plane was still. We were all asked to sit, and I did not hear one bit of grumbling in a totally full plane, and that made me happy. I thought there might be some grumbling because when you're on a long flight and you're that airplane comes to a stop, there's nothing you want more than to jump up and grab your bag and get off that plane. But we all had to wait, and we had to wait, a good 10 minutes or so while the honor guard retrieved the casket and carried this casket. And I just happened to have a good vantage from my seat to take these pictures. And here are the remains being put into the hearse. And then we were all permitted to get up and get out. And I just thought it was such a moving, respectful ceremony that we witnessed there on the plane. And I, of course, was very curious. They didn't say the name of the fallen. So the whole time, after I get off the plane, I sit down and I do some furious Googling. And I think this is the person. I think these are the remains. I think it's an Army corporal, 18 years old. He was killed in action, presumed to have been killed in action on July 20th, 1950. And if you know anything about the Korean War, that's very, very early, within the first month of the Korean War. He was from Duncansville, which is a small community south of Altoona, PA, David N. Defabal. 18 years old, a member of the 24th Infantry Division. He was among the very first U.S. casualties of the Korean War, and he was only 18 years old. Really remarkable. If you know about the Korean War, it was a seesaw of a conflict in the first year. There was a surprise invasion of North into the South on June 25th, 1950, and the North Korean Army just swept down the peninsula. The U.S. had very few troops there in South Korea. The South Korean Army was unprepared, utterly unprepared, as the U.S. troops were utterly unprepared. The first unit to be rushed in to try to fight back against the North Koreans was the 24th Infantry Division, rushed in from Japan. It was overwhelmingly a young division, very few, in other words, World War II vets in this division. A lot of 18-year-olds, a lot of 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, very poorly trained. They had 8 weeks of basic training. They had old equipment from, World War II, vintage equipment. Nothing had been updated. They were thrown into the fight, and their job was to try and halt the North Korean advance right about here south of Seoul at a place called Daejeon. And the battle was horrific. They were able to kind of block the North Koreans, their march down the peninsula for a while, for a week or so or two. But the casualties were devastating. I mean, this was an 11,000 person division. At least 4,000 were killed, wounded, and missing, at least 4,000. So they were steamrolled. I mean, they were absolutely steamrolled, but they're credited. And our fallen here is part of that, credited with slowing down the North Korean advance enough for the U.S. to be able to firm up the Pusan perimeter down at the very tip of the peninsula. And it was from that little piece of real estate that the U.S. and South Korean ROK forces were able to start battling back up toward the 38th parallel and eventually up toward the Yalu River in the very north. So David Defaba, his remains just recently identified in August in Hawaii through forensic analysis, is being brought back. I believe he was the one on our plane to be buried with military honors near Altoona later this week. I think on Friday is when the memorial service is scheduled for. And he has many nieces and nephews, grandnieces and nephews living in the Altoona area, and they'll be on hand. And I think those two young women must have been relatives of his. So I just thought I'd share that just because I found it so moving and a little glimpse into how these remains are so carefully handled. Scott Masters, hello. Here, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a really quick follow-up, Todd, to something I mentioned last week. I've been planning out my school's Remembrance Day assembly, and I asked my students to write essays about remembrance and, preferably something about their family history. And one of the girls, who is a first-generation immigrant from South Korea, talked to her grandparents. I told the kids they should talk to their grandparents, and she talked to her grandfather, who was a child during the war. His father was in the war, and it's plainly the first time that she had ever spoken to him about this. And she just uncovered a remarkable essay. I always do a little sit-down sort of interview with the students, and she couldn't get through it without crying. I mean, it was quite remarkable to see what this girl had found out. And I thought it's a good moment to tell you guys that the kids are looking back into their family history, and to any Korean War veterans, particularly, who are in the room tonight. She gives you a direct thank you. She got talking quite a bit about how her life has been impacted. It was really, really nice to hear somebody, do the work and to follow it up.
Isn't that wonderful? And that's because of you, Scott. Scott Masters, who I call Canada's greatest history teacher, teaches history at Crestwood Preparatory College outside of Toronto, Canada, has been doing it for many, many years, and has a wonderful veterans history project, oral history project that is massive. And it's all online and it's all accessible to anybody who wants to. Scott, would you do me a favor and please share, if you can, that the link to that oral history project so that people could explore it? You have such a fascinating collection that rivals some of the best, museums and military organizations around. Absolutely wonderful work. And having these students talk to their grandparents is such an important thing. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for sharing that. Jeff Witherell, I'm going to ask you to unmute. I think I've put myself in charge of unmuting here. Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
I was just commenting on the first month of that of the Korean War was when they attacked South and everything. People have to remember that we just completely took everything out of the area from World War II over 5 years, and everything was really against the Russians at that time. Everything was in Europe, and
Right.
And so they expected, not too much to happen over in the West. Japan was defeated. They weren't worried. For some reason, they weren't worried about North Korea, except North Korea got pushed by China. And when they went in there, the 24th, they were part of Task Force Smith. Task Force Smith was run by a guy named General Dean. I think General Dean was the first general officer to be killed in a long time in that battle. They were the first battles of
Yes.
the battles of Pusan and places like that. So
Was General Dean captured or was he killed?
I thought he was killed.
Okay.
I
Okay.
thought he was killed. Now maybe I might be wrong. He might have died in captivity, but I thought he got killed.
He got killed in action. Okay. Yeah. I'll look that up because my memory is fuzzy on that also. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. Yes. Utter unpreparedness, which seems to be our story, or a big part of our national story before every war, before the Korean War. And I'm going to ask John, let's go with John Kramer, because John, you emailed me a while back as kind of an addendum. I'm going to ask you to unmute, kind of an addendum to our wonderful conversation we had. I guess it was about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but it also, we've been talking about, we had an article in the VBC magazine about the Scud missile menace during the first Gulf War. John Kramer, you were in the Air Force. You were a photograph analyst, surveillance photograph analyst, and you said something interesting in an email to me, and I asked you if you'd be willing to come on tonight to talk about it a little bit more. You said that satellite images were difficult to interpret to find Scud missiles in Iraq during the first Iraq War. Is that correct?
Well, kind of correct. I have to give you a little bit of background on that, on how the satellite image during the Iraq War. A little history, the first satellites were put up in the 60s and they were photo-based, negative, just like you took pictures in the old days and you took your negatives and got them processed. But during the Iraq War, everything was digital. All the satellites were digital, which means they took an image like you did on your phone now, and it got downlinked to a receiving site, etc. But they were more geared towards specific targets, not area searches. So when they tried to find out where the Scuds were, and they were hiding them, they couldn't find them on satellite imagery because the satellites weren't actually looking for them. But the U-2 that flew, we processed back in Germany, gave us good widespread coverage. And we were able to look from oblique angles, and we found the Scuds that were hid under highway overpasses, which the satellites couldn't find. And so what I was telling you in the email I sent you, there's limitations to satellites. Just during the Iraq War, we had 2 imaging satellites circling the Earth, and they all circled in a polar atmosphere, which means they came north to south around the world, north to south around the world. And the 2 satellites, the reason for that is they wanted to image one in the morning and one in the afternoon.
Right.
And as they circled the Earth, Iraq ain't that big of a country. It's big, but it ain't like the Soviet Union. So as the satellites went around the world, they would get maybe 2, if they were real lucky, maybe 3 passes over Iraq during the day. Now, what they were looking for, now satellites are not controlled by the military. They're controlled by national, which would be the National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO. And everybody that wants pictures submits their requirements through the NRO, or actually through COMEREX, the Committee on Exploitation Requirements. And so the CIA was asking for certain pictures, NSA was asking for certain pictures, the Navy wanted certain pictures, Air Force wanted certain pictures, Army wanted certain pictures. Now the satellite can only image so many things. So as it's coming down across Iraq, it's shooting a shot here, has to maybe move a little bit, shoot a shot over here. And depending upon what resolution you wanted of those pictures, it would take more time to image. So if the NSA say they wanted to look at a command and control area because they were getting signals from it and they wanted real high resolution, that would tie up the satellite a little bit longer. And so the satellites really didn't find those broad area things that we could find on the U-2. And that's what I was telling you about in my story, how we find things that the satellites could not find.
And it was because the U-2, the SR-71 images were more focused on what you the areas that you wanted more knowledge about. Is that it?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking there. The U-2 would take broad area coverage, where the satellite was taking just images of certain little targets or installations.
Okay.
U-2 had several cameras on it. It would take, area searches, and it would take some pinpoints. And that's how we were able to get good angle to look under those overpasses, and we saw scuds. And we alerted the Air Force, and of course the F-15 Strike Eagles went out and took a lot of overpasses down.
So it's amazing to think that U-2s were more effective than satellites. This 1950s technology more effective than
For
1990s
certain
technology.
things. Yeah.
For certain things.
Yeah.
How neat. And I want to invite people, if you have questions for John, if you want to weigh in, wave your hand like this, or you could raise your hand. People aren't unmuting themselves just at the moment, but if you have questions or comments,
as those satellites came down, they would take images, but they also had to recharge their batteries. And, if they were taking real high resolution shots of certain areas, that ate up a lot of, their power. And then as a satellite, and most of the pictures that the satellite would take were always in the Northern Hemisphere, because that was where, the Soviet Union, China, and the countries we were interested in. And as it went south, it would spend more time recharging batteries and then come around for another pass.
Huh. Wow. So we were using a lot of U-2s in the Gulf War.
Yes, we were.
Huh.
We were using U-2s, SR-71s, and actually in the north, they sent a unit out of Zweibrück in Germany for RF-4C coverage. And the people that don't remember that, the RF-4C is Vietnam-based, film-based system.
So here is a recent satellite image that was released I think this might be in Syria, but I'm not positive. And I just used it as an example of, I don't know, the kind of image that you might have been interpreting. Here is another satellite image.
Yeah.
I believe this is from 1979 from Tehran. I think this is a satellite image.
It's a bad one if it is.
Yeah, sure is, isn't it?
Oh, it's a commercial satellite. That's what it is. That's why.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. And then I think this is from a U-2. I think this is from the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Now, when we took pictures, when we asked for coverage, you would ask for a certain what was called a NIRS rating, a National Imagery Interpretation Rating. And that was based on what kind of resolution you want out of the picture from the satellite. It went from NIRS 1, which was basically an overview of, you could see an airfields down there, all the way to what was NIRS 8, which was the highest imaging, where you could actually see facial features on a person.
Oh, wow. Holy mackerel. Amazing. And there's much about your work that you can't discuss, correct? Still.
Yeah, that is correct. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, John, for coming and sharing a bit of that.
Sure. Now, on your Korean War slide, you have a wrong date on there, Todd. It's July 27th, 1953.
What did I say?
June 27th.
Yeah, I said June. That's wrong. Who makes my slides? Who's making my slides? We'll get them. We'll gig them for that. Yeah, no, June 25th was the invasion. July 27th, 53 was the armistice was signed.
Hey, let me share one other thing with you, Todd. I don't know if you all were aware of this, but the Merchant Marines finally got their Congressional Gold Medal awarded. And my father, being a Merchant Marine, of course, he died many years ago. I got his medal.
Oh, how great, John. So your father had not at all talked about his service that you remember.
He told me one thing, that in the invasion of Sicily, when they were taking things over to Sicily, his ship got hit by a torpedo in the rear, but it did not sink. And this was in the Strait of Messina.
Oh, boy. So he was a survivor.
Yes.
But it didn't sink.
Right.
And that was your father, Earl.
Right. And he did 5 convoys: the invasion of North Africa, invasion of Sicily, invasion of Italy, and D-Day, and one other one that I'm not remembering right now.
Wow. The congressional, and of course, their casualties were just absolutely enormous, off the charts.
Mhm.
Right. Thank you, John.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Hey, James McCormick, I'm going to ask you to unmute. I want people to get to know you. I'm very grateful that you're joining us this evening. I think several people had recommended, here we go, that that I connect with you, one with the Steelers, and then Joe Griffey's just more recently. Joe Griffey's. I'm very grateful to Joe for doing that. Let me just show people here. This is James McCormick. He is he's the commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. He is also a recipient of the Purple Heart, sadly, 3 times, and is also the recipient of the Silver Star for actions that he did on April 11th, 2004. That's quite a lot of hardware that you wear, James. I imagine that has committed you to your work with the Military Order of the Purple Heart.
Absolutely. It's number one, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And we're all here. We're blessed to be here. I feel extremely blessed to be able to have the opportunity to have served my country, to have been able to come home, and now to be able to serve fellow veterans and their families. I've learned a lot over the years, especially as I've started to age and started to see how things really affect you. You don't really think about, a gunshot wound that was RTD, which is return to duty in 2004. By about 2014 to 2020, you start to develop arthritis. So I'm looking at Brad there thinking, man, I keep moving, just like you're talking about, Brad. You just got to keep moving. Now I'm not running marathons, but I'm out metal detecting, and I was out yesterday, and day before yesterday. It was supposed to be on Joe Griffey's show, and we have this television show that we do. So we were searching for this lost silver shipment that was, it's like a bushel basket full of silver. And I'm up climbing on the side of this hill thinking, I got a show with Joe Griffey, and I fell. And I'm telling you, I fell probably 20 feet off this cliff. And the only thing I could think about whenever I was falling down is this old body, it definitely doesn't bounce back like it used to. But I was unable to be on his radio show. So, and I didn't find the silver treasure. I found 1 silver coin, folks. So you got to have a sense of humor, right?
James, you fell 20 feet?
Oh, at least 20 feet. Yeah. I'm going to have it put on our YouTube channel because I had my GoPro on my chest, but really all you see is and you hear a bunch of and probably some curse words, but but what was funny is I had my service dog with me, and he ran down the hill. He was waiting for me at the bottom whenever I got there. He was really concerned. So
oh wow.
Fortunate, blessed, but I bounced right back up. And Friday I'll be in Anderson, South Carolina, to do 5 static line jumps with the Royal Laotian Airborne, and I'm really just trying to live life, the best I can right now. So
you're going to do static line jumps with the Royal Laotian Air Force?
Airborne, yeah, it's
airborne.
Yeah, they have a jump school down there. So I'm hoping that when I get done with those 5, that we're going to try to get me rigged with my service dog. And so myself and Bravo hopefully will get a chance to jump as well. So it's a pretty cool experience. I'm looking forward to it.
James, you are the commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, and this is something that people can find out about. I'm sure they've seen, there's been a lot of billboards lately about the Purple Heart, purpleheart.org. People could go to purpleheart.org and find out more. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do
Sure.
what the order does and what your role is in the group.
So I recently, so you do 1 year. So I just recently left that position. So now there's a new national commander, and everybody does a year. But the order is very focused on, taking care of not just the combat wounded veterans, but also all veterans and their families. We become very focused on family members, because the one thing that I discovered in particular when I came into this is that we were doing a lot of stuff for the veterans, but there's a lot of families out there. I've got 8 kids. I've got 10. I'm sorry, I got 11 grandchildren now. My wife's going to shoot me if she sees that, but 11 grandchildren. And it's like, and every one of them are impacted by a decision that's made for their veteran. And there's Chris Vedvik. He's the new national commander. Great guy. Chris is a close personal friend. Tragically, his young and very beautiful wife passed away probably 2 months before he was elected as the national commander. It was a sad situation. So he's a single dad down there in Florida, raising 3 kids, and is a combat wounded hero in my eyes, and just a wonderful man. He's just a wonderful man. So I couldn't have handed the mantle to anybody better. And I was really surprised. What impressed me was the fact that he went through that tragedy, a tremendous tragedy. You lose a family member. And then, you're all of a sudden, you're taking care of 3 kids all by yourself.
Yeah.
And, sad situation, but the Military Order of the Purple Heart is there to assist and help people. We're very much more active now in looking for ways to improve legislation to improve the lives of all veterans. So look, it's the Purple Heart is not a medal that anybody goes out looking for, saying, oh, I want to go out and get me 3 or 4 Purple Hearts, unless you're crazy, but it's about everybody else. It's like there's not very many of us. So if my fellow veterans can stand on our shoulders so that they can get a little bit higher and see and get something that they need, then that's what the Military Order of the Purple Heart, that's what we should all be doing, because it's just the right thing to do. We're in a position right now to where, the wars are over. And as you all know, when wars end, the love for veterans starts to die down. In 3 to 4 years, it's like, what's OIF? And kids in high school, they're not gonna be thinking about it. And we have to keep the message out in front of us, especially these elected politicians, and hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they're doing the right thing. So that's what we do, and that's how we do it.
You mentioned supporting families, and that is something that I learned early on working with the Veterans Breakfast Club, how when one member of the family joins the military, the whole family is then entwined in the military, and they enter the subculture in their own way, and they get impacted by war. They get impacted by wounded service men and women returning. I think that's a wonderful focus of the work that you do, is on the families of those recipients, of those Purple Hearts recipients.
Well, it's all families. I put 2 sons on a plane and sent them over to the same combat zones that I fought in. And
Amazing.
I knew what they were going into. And, it's different whenever I'm climbing on the plane, and you're thinking, okay, this is an adventure. I did 26 months total in combat, but I thought about 26 seconds. You could lose your life in less than 26 seconds. Yeah. And every day, my children, my sons, and they were just wonderful sons. And then I had a daughter-in-law that is also in the military. So it's like, there was one time where we had 3 blue stars hanging up in our window, thinking, praying every day, worrying about them every day. That's whenever I really sat back as well and started thinking, holy cow, this has been hard on me as a dad.
Yep.
it's even harder on those dads. You guys that went to Vietnam, your dads were in World War II. You guys, your dads, you know, and your mothers knew what you were going into. And I mean, every day it was a nail biter. Every day you'd look, you'd see a strange car enter the neighborhood.
Oh,
And worried to death, you know, that they were coming to your house. 6 doors down, 2 years before, that occurred here. And I'll never forget, I was outside and I'll never forget the wail 6 doors down, you know, 6 houses down, of a mother who lost her son in combat in Afghanistan. And it was darn heartbreaking. And you know, we've got to do good and we've got to do righteous things and we've got to come together. You know, the fist does a lot better when all the fingers are together, you know. When we're poking at everything like this, which is what I see a lot of VSOs doing, you know, they all want to do their own little thing, go this way. But boy, it's a whole lot better if you come together, because then you can really do some good with that. So
you have 8 children, so you that puts you on the other side of the equation, being a Blue Star parent and seeing your kids go off to war. Did you have any advice for them?
You know, the hardest thing I had to do was to talk to my sons about the possibility of having to, you know, shoot or be, you know, another human being. And that's the discussion that I had, a very private discussion with them about this, and explained to them about, because we taught them about values and forgiveness, and the 10 Commandments was heavy, you know. It was explaining to them that it was okay to do what you have to do. But the hardest thing was transitioning when they came home, especially one of them. You know, I mean, drinking himself into oblivion. You know, I thought I was going to lose my son who lived through the war, and to come home and to potentially, you know, kill himself or drink himself to death. You know, it was about 6.5 months of really a lot of praying, and we were dealing with a lot of other stuff as well. I mean, there was just, you know, always nonstop nonsense that goes on. But it aged me significantly. And if I didn't have my family there with me, supporting me and helping me, my wife and my other children, if I didn't have a hobby, like I didn't have the ability to get out, you know, I worked in the garden and I did the farming and I did the metal detecting. If I didn't have the Military Order of the Purple Heart to keep me busy and focused, you know, I would have found myself sliding down that slippery slope as well, you know. And it was, you know, we just weren't going to have that. I just refused to let my sons or anybody's sons or daughters fall into that abyss if I've got the ability to reach down and pull them out, you know. And that's what we're here to do. I mean, that's.
James, may I ask what helped your son after that 6.5 months or so of real struggle? Was there anything in particular that helped kind of reintegrate, helped him transform into the new him he had to become here stateside?
You know, it was really a lot of one-on-one discussions with him. And, you know, now I'm talking to you as a fellow combat veteran, someone that has seen horrific things. We've both seen horrific things. We've both had to do ungodly, unmerciful things. And, you know, and I just kept reminding him that every day will get better. If you get through tonight, if you get through tomorrow, the next day is going to be better. It's going to be better. It's going to be better. And then it was constantly on the phone, calling, texting. You know, I refused to give up. I mean, his wife called me one night. It was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and he had gotten really drunk and fell asleep and was on his back. So I was telling her, roll him over on his side so he doesn't aspirate in his sleep. And well, she was a very small lady and she couldn't do it. So we drove as fast as we could to get there just to roll my son over on his side. But you know what? That's okay. You do that because that's what you need to do. And if he needed to call somebody, sometimes he'd just call me up just cussing and raging. And I would say, you feel better now? yeah, I do feel better. I'm like, good. Well, get it out of your system, because I think there was, for me, I think what really helped him was the fact that he knew that I loved him too much to quit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, oh, I can't deal with this,
Right.
because I've had people say that to me, when I got out. Oh, I can't deal with that. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. I figured out something on my own in many cases. My wife probably deserves a medal, more so than I do, for the stuff that she had to put up with for that. From 2005 to 2009, she nursemaided me. I spent a year and a half in and out of the VA hospital. The Army says, your career's done. I had a pretty wicked traumatic brain injury that I had no idea that I had. And it was hard for me to give up a career that I loved. I was trying to go back overseas again. And,
yeah, your career Army, right. Right.
Yeah, 22 years. Yeah. I would have stayed in. I would have stayed in until they kicked me out, and eventually they medically did, I guess, kick me out.
Yeah.
They retired me. It was a nice retirement, but
right. Oh my.
Yeah.
James, I would love to have you on again. I'm going to email you so that you could share your full story. 22 years in the military, Silver Star recipient, 3 Purple Hearts. You have a real story, and then the family story also. Would you be willing to come on and spend a longer time talking about your service?
Absolutely. If it helps one person, I'll go through all of it and share it. I've learned to do that over the years. So yes.
Good. You have learned to do it.
Yes, sir.
Not easy the first time, but it gets easier the more you talk about it.
Yes, I don't talk much about the battle. I mean, I've got a citation, you can read it.
Right.
Citations pretty much it explains it.
Right.
But the medals mean nothing, right? I mean, let me just take it back. The medals do mean something to me and to a lot of other people. But it's when you get a medal like that. Woody Williams was a very good friend of mine, very good, close personal friend.
Fellow West Virginian.
Heck yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, Woody talked to my sons before they left and when they came back.
Jeez.
So, I had a lot of help here. But Woody told me, he says, now, Jim, he says, the Silver Star is the nation's 3rd highest medal. He says, God has granted you the ability to have a platform with that medal to do good. And you do as much good as you can with it. If not, I'm going to skin you alive, son.
Oh, we had him on this program, and was he great? Oh, was he wonderful? Inspiration.
Yeah, the world is a lot sadder place without Woody Williams, but I'm glad he's up there watching over us.
Yeah, we're all diminished without him. I agree. Thank you, James, and I hope to see you again. I'm going to be harassing you by email to come on again and share more of your story. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Excellent. Michelle Fisher, are you with us here? I'm going to ask you to unmute if we can. Michelle, are you still with us? Maybe you're not. Oh boy. Let's see. I'm going to allow everybody to unmute just in case you are on with us here, Michelle, and you're trying to unmute here. I'm going to allow you to. All right. Now you are allowed.
Yes, here I am. I can
unmute. There you are.
Thank
Hallelujah.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you, thank you for your
Hi.
patience, and thank you for joining us tonight to share a little bit about the PACT Act.
Yes, thank you for having me tonight, and it's an honor to be here. I work with the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm a VBA representative, and I just wanted to share a few things. I was trying to get this PowerPoint out to you, the slide to share, but I'll just go over it very quick with you what the PACT Act is, if many of you didn't hear about it. A PACT Act is the Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics Act of 2022. It's a new law that expands VA healthcare benefits for veterans exposed to burn pits and other toxic substance. It's a law that helps provide generations of veterans and their survivors with the care and benefits they earned and deserve. The PACT Act expands and extends eligibility for VA healthcare, which is very important for veterans with toxic exposures, veterans and the Vietnam era, Gulf War, and 9/11 era. Also, it expands eligibility for benefits for veterans exposed to toxic substance. The VA Act, the Act expands and extends eligibility for VA healthcare for veterans with toxic exposures and veterans of the Vietnam era. VA will improve the decision-making process. Are you guys still there with me? I've seen something go off. Okay, yeah.
We are with you. We're with you.
VA will improve the decision-making process for determining what medical conditions will be considered for presumptive status. Every enrolled veteran will receive an initial toxic exposure screening and a follow-up screening every 5 years. Veterans who are not enrolled but who are eligible to enroll will have an opportunity to enroll and receive the screening. VA healthcare staff and claims processors will receive toxic exposure related education and training. So we're getting a lot of education and training on this new PACT Act. Also, the Act requires research studies of mortality of veterans who served in Southwest Asia during the Gulf War, post 9/11 veteran health trends, and veterans cancer rates. Also, the VA Act will help build a stronger and more skilled workforce to meet the growing demand for benefits and service. The Act authorizes 31 new medical facilities across the country, providing greater health care. So there's going to be greater health care. Also, as of August 10th, a long list of new conditions are presumed to be service-connected due to the various in-service toxic exposures. If you want to get some more information or you want to apply, you can apply at the va.gov/PACT so that your claim can be processed and you can get your benefits. There's 20 new PACT Act conditions. And Todd, I'm going to try to send this out with you so that you can share some of this with the veterans and they can see it themselves on the 20 new presumptive conditions. I'll just go over some of them, or like asthma, brain cancer, chronic pancreatitis, chronic obstructive. There's so many in here that they can go over, and I'll let you share this with some of them. Kidney cancer, neck cancer, pancreatic cancer, respiratory conditions, high blood pressure is going to be one of them, head cancer. There's gastrointestinal cancers. There's so many in here. There's 20, and there's respiratory. So there's a lot in here. There's 20 new ones that are going to be coming out. VA is going to recognize those and start paying on those presumptive conditions. Also, Vietnam era veterans who served in the following locations at the time periods can enroll now into VA, and that's in the Republic of Vietnam between January 9th, 1962 and May 7th of 1975. Also in Thailand and any U.S. Royal Thai base between January 9th, 1962 and June 30th of 1976. Also Laos between December 1st, 1965 and September 30th of 1969. Certain provinces in Cambodia is going to be required. You can now get healthcare between April of 1969 and April 30th of 1969. Guam or American Samoa or their territory waters between January 9th, 1962 and July 31st of 1980. And the last one is Johnstown Atoll, or a ship that called there between January 1st, 1972 and September 30th of 1977. So post 9/11 combat veterans who separated or discharged between these times, September 11, 2001 and October 1st of 2013, can now get in a special enrollment period for 1 year, from August 1st, 2022 to August 1st of 2023, and the enrollment is free. And also, what about the additional benefits for the care for the other veterans, Gulf War veterans, and their survivor benefits? You're going to be able to apply for benefits off of information for Vietnam era veterans, Gulf War veterans, survivors, and so much more can be found right at the va.gov/PACT. So you can go on there and look. Also, you can apply now. VA won't begin to process these claims until January 1st of 2023. If you were denied of any of those presumptive conditions, if you go on the va.gov PACT and see one of the presumptive conditions and you was denied, you're going to be able to go and file VA claim. And you can do that by contacting any of us at va.gov. And this is how you can file a claim, or you can call the benefits hotline, which is 1-800-827-1000, or you can visit us at any VBA regional office, or you can work with your accredited VSO if you have a VSO, or you can find it when you go on to the va.gov PACT Act. You can go on there and you can look and you can get all this information. I know I've probably talked a little fast, and you probably thought that I was going through a little fast, but I can also send this out and share this PowerPoint with you, Todd, and get some of this information out, and you can share it with some of the participants that was on here tonight.
You do talk fast, Michelle, and you're only talking fast because I asked you to.
Oh,
I asked you to
you
keep
told
it
me
to
you
10
had
minutes.
10 minutes. And I said,
know,
10 minutes. How am I going to get all this in 10
I
minutes?
know,
But,
that's me. I know, that's
I'm
on
sorry
me.
about that. But if anybody has any questions, I can answer if they have any questions real quick. If not, I can surely get this out with you, share it so you can share it with the group, or they can go on to va.gov and PACT.
This is Michelle Fisher. She's a public outreach specialist at the Department of Veteran Affairs here in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And I want to ask people, if you have a question for her now, please do raise your hand. You could unmute yourself also if you'd like right now. Ask her right now, or if you'd prefer to email her or call her later. Michelle, would you would it be okay if I shared your contact information here in the chat?
Sure.
Okay, I will do that. I'll share it here, and people could contact you if they have any questions about the PACT Act or other VA issues. Don Nemchek, you have your hand up. How are you, Don?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Todd. Michelle, I want to give you and the other representatives from the Veterans Administration and the DAV, Disabled American Veterans. I filed my claim about 3 weeks ago, and I'm pursuing it under the PACT Act as well. And I want to tell the other veterans that the process is not laborious. There's some forms to fill out. We're all used to that. And if you are already enrolled into the VA, they can upload a lot of your records. So you don't have to have a lot of the paperwork with you. And remembering that it is a presumptive claim, you don't have to show that your disability or your malady is as a result of your service. It is a result of you being at that specific place. So it's something that I encourage all the veterans to take a strong look at, because there's benefits to be had, and it's the right thing to do for the government.
Yes. Yes. And we're here to help you. You don't have to get all your records. Like he said, we're going to go out and find those records and, do the research for you. All you have to do is apply.
Don, your application was for Blue Water Navy exposure?
No, it was exposure on Guam.
Guam.
I served there at a naval communication station from 71 to 72, and I was up all around Edmiston Air Force Base, and we did some boonie stomping and all around the areas that they were supposedly dumping a lot of the defoliants and the toxic stuff. So it was an easy process. Tammy from DAV helped me. Ron Gianto, of course, encouraged everybody. So the veterans have to really get motivated, and the PACT Act has been passed. It's a law now, and I look for the VA to do right. And I think I look for them to move quickly as well.
And we are. The VA is moving quickly. We're getting very educated on it. As of August 10th, it came out into the law. And then, like I said, in January is when the VA will begin processing these claims, but you can still file now. There's many ways that you can file the claim. And we're here to help you.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
And Michelle, you're going to be with Sue Watson at Veterans Helping Veterans in Homestead on November 18th.
Yes, I'm there every third Thursday of the month, and I'm there from 10 to 3. So anybody to want to come down there and file, I can help. You can help. I can help you, or you can meet me in person if you want to. And I'm there every third Thursday of the month.
Wonderful. Chris Kemp, I know you as Chris Parolo. That is not a very, if you're going to change your name, you've got to, change your first name also, please.
Tonight, I am with my sweeter half, and I'm using her computer. That's what that's about.
Got it. Okay. Got it.
She's tending to the goblins and ghosts at the front door right now. But I wanted to mention something since Michelle is on here, and this may be old news to you guys here, but the VA partnered with the Department of Transportation, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and issued a mass mailing inviting veterans, anybody who had their VA identification on their driver's license. They did a mailing to them inviting you to register with the VA. And that was only, I think I only received that a couple weeks ago or less. And my brother-in-law, it was timely for my brother-in-law who retired, and he jumped on that right away and he sent his in. But if you don't know about that, and I'm not sure what the criteria was, but that's how they identified Pennsylvania veterans and partnered to do this mass mailing through Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. So they're reaching out to capture veterans who have not yet registered. So I just want to mention that. And I don't know if Michelle is involved with that or knows about that.
Well, that's probably with the VHA healthcare, but we will get familiar with that too. But we can also help out too. VBA and VHA, we're all one entity, so VA.
Right. I just want to mention that they did that. I was shocked. I get the DOT envelope there, and I open it up, and it's a letter of an explanation and all the forms from the VA to register. That was pretty interesting. Good idea too.
I apologize for that. You're right. 11/18 is a Friday. I'm there on Thursday, 11/17. Sorry about that. November 17th, I will be out Veterans Helping Veterans. It's every third Thursday of the month. Apologize for that.
Yeah, you can't get anything past Jim Jameson. He is there to correct you. I have learned that the hard way over many years. Mark Spiradigliosi, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Michelle. A question for Michelle. I filed a claim back in June of this year. I was diagnosed with lung cancer, and probably due to Agent Orange. Is it imperative that you are registered with the Agent Orange registry at the VA if you're going to do an Agent Orange claim?
You don't have to be registered. If you would like it, you can be registered and you can get registered. But if you're filing the Agent Orange claim, we're still going to look at your claim and decide your claim. But you don't have to be registered.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle Fisher. Again, your contact information is here in the chat.
And Todd, excuse me, could I say one more thing? I'm at the VA hospital, the VA Medical Center on the first and third Wednesday of the month. I'm up there every first and third Wednesday. So I'm right by the Starbucks. If you're familiar with the VA Medical Center in Oakland, I'm up there and I will be able to help you also file your claim, ask questions on claims, and also the VSOs are up there during the week also.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. So they can come out and say hello when they're at their VA appointment on a first or third Wednesday,
yes.
You said, huh?
Yes. And if they have a question or I can give them more information if they want to, I'll be glad to help them.
Michelle, thank you so much for spending your Halloween evening with us.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Let's turn to three writers. Well, we have several writers. We have Mike Mayer on too, but we have Ken Kazak and Irene Haskell, and let's go to Dale Ann Edmiston. Dale Ann, you've been waiting a long time to say hello to us. Dale Ann, are you on, Dale Ann? And Dale Ann, you are the only Dale Ann I think I've ever met.
Hey, I'm unmuted now.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing? Thank you.
Good. It's good to meet you. I want people to know a little bit about who you are. You are one of two brave knight writers, the other one being your husband, and together you have written 3 books. I think one is still yet to be released. You have William Wright and Dale Ann Edmiston. I thought I'd share. These are 3 of the books that you have. I know at least 2 of them are very focused on the military and veteran experience, and you yourself are a veteran, correct?
Right. I joined the Air Force on my 18th birthday in 1979, and I was an F-16 mechanic, and then I cross-trained into avionics, and I got out of the Air Force in 1988 because I felt like I couldn't be a good mom and a good sergeant.
Right.
So.
Why did you join to begin with when you were 18?
Well, I'm the 10th child in my family, and so I think I had to feed myself. And I liked to be outside. I always had worked outside, and so I went to see the recruiter, and he said, "Boy, do I have a job for you." And so I crew chief.
We'll get you outside, yeah. Dale, and we're receiving a lot of interference. I think audio interference. I think it's on your end.
Okay.
So if I mute you, that is why. So you kind of grew up, it sounds like, in the Air Force. How many years did you put in? 6 or 8?
9.
9 years.
Yeah.
So you go in when you're an 18-year-old kid, you come out a mom and much more mature, huh?
Yes. And both of my sons are veterans also. My older son is an Air Force veteran. He was stationed right back where we were when he was a little kid. And my younger son's a Navy veteran.
Oh, how neat. And here again is your, I think this is your first book, Havasupai. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. And this book portrays how wars affect everyone, whether you go to the war or not. And so this is a World War II hero and a Vietnam draft dodger who end up on an adventure together.
And did you draw on your own military experience to kind of, craft the characters and craft the story and the setting and the problems that the characters encounter?
Not so much. This is more of my husband's embellishment on, we've traveled into the Havasu. This is set in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Okay. And so some characters we met along the way. And then also my father-in-law is a World War II veteran. And so some of the ideas come from that, from the stories he had told. And actually, we have 3 books more coming out soon. And the one of his story he was a radio operator on a C-53 in World War II. And that will be coming out in January.
Is this the book Instead by Grace?
No, this is our true story. We had a break-in while we were home, and my husband had to shoot the intruder. and that's the story of the recovery over the next year from, I actually had a lot of issues after that. So.
Oh my, Dale Ann, that is horrific. Oh boy. Okay, I'm starting to understand things better, a little bit better now. Dale, and you did share your website here with us in the chat, and I think I did also. The book coming out, tell us a little bit more about the one that is going to be coming out that has to do with the World War II radio operator.
Okay, and we would really like to present, at one of the breakfasts. Since I'm a teacher, I can't ever make it on a weekday, but maybe on a Saturday or in the summer. And,
right.
But it's sort of, my husband has all of the logs from his father, from his service, and he was gone 5 years in World War II. And so we write this so that you kind of live it with him, so that you don't even know if he survives or not, so that you can feel what he was feeling and not so much about the different battles and so on, although it's very historically accurate.
But it's from the subjective point of view of that character.
Yes, it was, he had extensive logs that he kept. And so, we did have a good idea of some of his experiences. And he was in all of those invasions that were mentioned earlier, the invasion of Sicily, and he airlifted into Yugoslavia and back out of Yugoslavia, women and children.
Whoa.
36 times.
Wow. Well, let's schedule something, maybe online or maybe on a Saturday or maybe in the summer, next summer, when the book is out and you're not bound to the classroom. You could join us. Would love to have you join us anytime, Dale Ann.
Okay, thank you very much.
What was your parents' reasoning in naming you Dale Ann?
Oh, actually, my father named me Nora, and he went back to work. And I joke that my mother felt she was liberated. It was the 60s, and so she changed my name. And I think she liked Dale Evans. I don't know if you're familiar with Dale Evans. She was a singing cowgirl.
Yeah, sure. Right, Dale Evans. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's so great.
I can't carry a tune in a bucket.
That's good. Well, it's a wonderful name. And thank you so much for joining us, Dale Ann. Thank you. And I hope you'll join us again.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, how were the, so you taught today? You were in school today?
Actually, I took a sick day today. I just, I don't know, feeling my age.
I think I know why you took a sick day. Because Halloween is crazy with kids.
Well, that might have something to do with it. I teach high schoolers, but the high schoolers operate a preschool. So we have 3 to 5 year olds that I teach them how to teach. And the big ones and the little ones are crazy around Halloween with all the candy.
Good day to take off. You're smart. All right. Thank you, Dale Ann.
Right.
Hey, I want to ask Irene, why do I call you Haskell? Is your name Harold?
Yeah, my last name is Harold. That's okay. I think there was maybe some miscommunication. I'm sorry on my part. I think maybe I misspelled something in one of our emails.
Do you know what? I think you did. Because believe me, I make plenty of mistakes, but I was certain that I saw you write Haskell at some point.
Oh,
okay.
no, I'm sorry.
So it's Harold, Irene Harold. And Irene, you are also a writer, and you joined us at our breakfast last Tuesday here in Bethel Park. And it was wonderful having you because, you know, you were the youngest person in the room, and that's always good to, you know, have some youth. Seriously, to have, like what Scott Masters was saying before, have younger people present to hear the stories and pass them on. And you are somebody who is committed, I think, to collecting and capturing and sharing stories, especially of Vietnam veterans, correct?
Yeah, I think when I mentioned at the breakfast, I went down to Florida in May of 2021 to visit my grandfather who had served in Vietnam. He was in the Air Force. And that was kind of the first time that I got to hear some of his story, and was really inspired by it. And I come from a military family. My grandfather served, my uncle served, my brother is currently serving. And I've always loved to write. Would write little short stories in my notebook growing up. And then, just recently, over the last year, 2 years, have been really interested in veteran stories. And just about a month ago, I Googled Pittsburgh Vietnam vet organizations because I was like, well, I'm writing a book, and reading about Vietnam is great, but what would be really great is actually being able to talk to veterans. So, and then I found this awesome organization, and I wrote Todd an email asking if I could give an announcement at one of the breakfasts, and he very kindly put me into the itinerary. And it was wonderful being at the breakfast. I went with a good friend of mine, and we had a great time. And I actually got to interview a Korean War vet from the breakfast. He's chosen to remain anonymous, but I got to hear his story. And while he didn't serve in Vietnam, I love talking to veterans of any war, any, vets of any kind. I love hearing your story. And he told me he was in the front row when Marilyn Monroe came to perform for the troops. And I thought that was really something. I was like, wow. He said that the men were woo-wooing so loud it was hard to actually hear her sing, but that was quite an incredible story to hear. And I just sorry, I'm going on a ramble, but I've gotten to interview several veterans so far, and I just fall more in love with the process, as I continue to interview more veterans.
So you want to invite veterans to be interviewed if they'd like to. You could interview them over Zoom. You could interview them in person, right? You could meet for coffee. It could be anonymous. It could be, on the record. It could be recorded. Correct?
Absolutely. Whichever format works best for you, and if you want to remain anonymous, I just interviewed a vet who, wished to remain anonymous, and absolutely okay. Whatever your preference, absolutely. In person, Zoom, over the phone, any of those work great.
And I happen to have a picture that was taken by that anonymous veteran of Marilyn Monroe in Korea.
Oh my gosh.
So I do know exactly who that veteran is. And yes, it is true.
I
did
gotta
get
take a
this-
picture of this. That's
Oh
so
yeah,
cool.
I'll share it with you. I'll share the picture with you. Here is Maryland's. This is in Korea.
Oh
Here's
my gosh. Yeah,
is
please
that
send
cool
these to
or
me.
what?
That
And then
is
here's
wow, that's incredible.
yeah, it is great. It really is great. Yeah, I will definitely share these pictures with you. Yes, he tells it so well, and so much fun to hear him tell that story. So I'm looking around the room here, Irene, and I do see some Vietnam veterans, and I know that they would be willing to be drafted into an interview. I see Larry and Michael and Doc and Dennis Wojtek. So good to see you, Dennis. And several others, Bob Mizwa, I know would be, Joe Griffey's, you'd be willing to do that, right? Bob McCormick. So thank you. So, hey, Irene, I'm just hoping that you have enough hours in the day to talk to these veterans and record their stories. Please do keep in touch. Come on again. You could just send out, you could come on just for 5 minutes, every Monday if you wanted, and just say, hey, I'm Irene. I'm interviewing Vietnam veterans. Contact me if you're interested. And then you could go out and, you don't have to hang on all night. But I think it would be nice. I just thought it would be nice to introduce you to people here and then have you be recurring so that you could, come on and keep on inviting them. Know that the invitation is open.
Yeah.
Does she have a number we can call her?
Good question.
I'll put my contact info into the chat box. If any of you want to give me a call or send me an email. And I wanted to say something real quick so I don't ramble on too long, but I got to interview a Vietnam veteran last Monday, actually. He served in the Army, and he told me that going into it, he was a little bit nervous. I was a little bit nervous myself because when he told me he had never talked about his story before, I was like, oh gosh, I hope I do a good job. But it was a really heartfelt and emotional experience for him. And at the end, he started crying. He had tears in his eyes, and he said, thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for showing an interest in my story. And it was it was so powerful. And I just and having him trust me with his story is just such an honor. And so just thank you all for your service, and thank you, Todd, for letting me speak on here tonight. It's really wonderful being here with you all, and I will right now put my contact info in the chat box if any of you are interested.
Irene, it's so great to hear from a young person who's so interested, number one, but also committed to being a faithful steward of the stories that you collect. To treat them with care, to treat them with dignity and honor, to treat the veterans who are sharing their stories with dignity and honor. And so thank you very much for the work that you're doing and the interest that you show.
Thank you, Todd. That means a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Ken Kazak, you're a writer. What do you think of these writers that we have coming on here? Ken, you are actually holding a writing workshop.
Yes.
Anatomy of a Movie.
Todd, I appreciate anybody who takes pen to paper. I'm glad to see Irene here and anybody else. So I teach writing, and I use this tool called Anatomy of a Movie because if you're going to write, the toughest thing to write is a screenplay. If you can write a screenplay, you could write a book, poem, love letter, grant application, etc. We've talked about that before. So on November 10th, I'm showing film clips showing one of the most important things you can display, and it's the aha moment. And I'm giving myself away here with the brochure. Everybody knows that's James Caan on the left side and William Holden on the right side. So we're using film clips from movies that they appeared in and a few others just to explain the aha moment. So it's free to attend. It's going to be next Thursday at 7:00. There's an email address on there to send information to. And look, here's the point. If you're interested in writing, this is an easy way to get started. If you're not interested in writing, but you just like great movies, it's also a cool event to attend.
So again, that's Thursday, November 10th at 7 p.m. and it's on Zoom, correct?
It'll be a Zoom call. Yes.
It'll be a Zoom call, and to register for the workshop, and it's free of charge. Send an email. I'll put it in the chat here. Send an email to Ken, and then Ken, you will share the Zoom link with folks. Here we
the
go.
Zoom link goes out. But look, it's a interesting thing to do on Veterans Day Eve.
Look at you with your fancy microphone. I like it.
So it's I was told Frank Sinatra used the same kind. So
I think it's not hooked up. It's not hooked up.
I think you're right.
That's just for show. Oh my gosh.
It is. So.
You have no shame, Ken. Well, thank you for.
But I think it looks cool. I'm sorry.
It does look cool. I need one of those. Mike Mayer, I just want to have you unmute just to say hello. It's so good to see you again. Was there anything in particular you were joining us to say or to share?
Well, actually, I'm sorry I've been absent for the program for quite a while. Life kind of gotten away. Plus, I had some surgery, which has laid me up for a couple months so far. But Irene, everything you talked about, interviewing veterans, I can identify with, especially those really emotional stories where they say, I've never told this to somebody else, including their spouse in many cases. And I had the opportunity to interview approximately 300 World War II veterans and also interview many Imperial Japanese Navy veterans in Japan as well, as I was writing 2 books. Todd, I tuned in because in my hometown here of Platteville, the U.S. Army veterans, when I first moved to town, were all members of the 32nd Division and served in New Guinea. And so I, as a young man in my early 20s, I heard a lot of stories about how terrible that situation was, including one gentleman that owned a store fairly close to where I had a shop, who indicated that he was reported to his parents as being missing in action because he was with the intelligence services and they were actually operating behind enemy lines. And they were gone for approximately 40 days. And somehow he was reported as missing in action. Listen to a lot of those stories from them from World War II. And even as a young man, I was always asking questions and listening and learning. And I too feel it's really important that as writers, we document their stories and their legacy.
Mike, are you going to be able to join us? Are you going to be able to join us tomorrow night at 7?
Tomorrow evening at 7? I may be
at
able
7,
to do that,
7 Eastern, and which will be what, 6 p.m. where you are?
Yes, in Wisconsin. Yes.
In Wisconsin. And because Glenn Flickinger is going to be doing that program on the 32nd Division, it'd be great to have a Wisconsinner. And people should know, I want people to see that people should know that Mike Mayer is the author of this wonderful book called Kai-10, Japan's Secret Man-Suicide Submarine and the First American Ship it sank in World War II. Your father was on that ship that was sunk, and the picture of it is behind you. This is a wonderful book if you haven't read it. It is the the Japanese kamikazes underwater. It is the story, a pretty not well-known story of
that is true.
In a very important part of the Japanese war in the Pacific against the Americans, underwater kamikazes. Terrific book. And also, Mike doesn't look old enough to have grandchildren, but he does. And sadly, one is heading off to boot camp. Here he is. Is this a grandson? I'm guessing.
This is my youngest grandchild. He's 11 years old, and he's just crazy about the military. And I took that picture last night because that's all authentic gear that he's wearing. So he went out tonight all dressed up. He's got a 1903 Springfield government issued training rifle and a movie prop Colt 1911 45. Everything's the real stuff.
I love it. They're getting younger all the time, Mike. I tell you.
I know. I think he's following in Henry's shoes.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And Larry Guggens also shared something that I want to share. Larry Guggens, if you want to unmute yourself, I know what this is. This is a crop circle, correct?
That's it.
Yeah, aliens made this, right?
I think the aliens made that. I think that was correct. And that was when you started talking about the pictures from the satellite pictures and all that, which is quite interesting. And I was able to do. I didn't take this picture, but I had it, and I believe it's a picture. It's an SA2 site, but I believe it was in North Vietnam. While I was there flying in 1970, we could overfly North Vietnam, but we couldn't drop any ordnance. That was the peacetime, Todd. You know all about that.
Right. The bombing halt.
And so I did have 5 missions over North Vietnam and a Pentax camera with me. So I would take pictures out the window of the F4.
You're kidding me.
It wasn't an RF4, it was just a regular F4E, and take some pictures. I really can't tell you if I took that picture or not, but I had several of them that I kept after the fact. That one and several others of bombing missions and things like that in Laos. But that is an SA2 site. There's not a lot of launchers there. Well, I guess there is some. And I can't put his name now, can tell me what they really are from doing the taking the pictures and realizing it. I have several others, Todd, but I just kind of sent one out. Now I think they're the same setup that was in Iraq also, I think, but I'm not sure.
And I'm sorry, what is an SA2?
Oh, I'm sorry, surface to air missile.
Okay, surface to air missile.
Air missile that shot down the U-2s.
Okay.
And the same surface to air missiles, I believe, that were in Cuba.
Okay.
They were definitely the one that shot down Francis Gary Powers, as I understand. So real quick, it's getting late. In the middle of it is the radar paraphernalia.
Okay.
And then around the outside of that ring, that's the missile right there. There they are.
Yes.
And, when they come firing at you, fortunately, I never had one shot at me, but when they come firing up at you, it looked like a telephone pole with, fire coming out of the back of it. That's what it looked like towards you. Very big, long thing. But that was one of the first surface air missiles. And of course, for Francis Gary Powers, they never thought it would get up as high as he did. And lo and behold, they sure did. And again, there's more of the intel folks can tell a lot more about that. But we were talking about that earlier, and I just remember that picture.
Larry, this is fascinating on so many levels. First of all, you may have taken this photo with a simple Pentax camera out the window.
Yeah, they hit just a regular Pentax camera, which I still have, by the way. And they allowed you to take it I was in the back seat of the F4 at the time.
Right.
And they allowed you to take that and you take pictures of whatever. And I have most of the pictures I have of ordnance that we dropped. And to try to evaluate the battle damage assessment, and some know the term BDA. But that's what most of them are. Matter of fact, I have another one of these I'll send you later where at a later date, a BDU bomb, the small bomblets, dropped on that thing, and I can send it to you. It's getting late. I'll send it to you. Where it was dropped on that thing and demolished half of that site, the little bomblets, there.
Right.
But anyway, that's all. I sent it because we were talking about pictures from the satellites.
That's so interesting. You're giving me a little homework assignment to look up the SA2 and find out a little bit more about those first generation surface to air missiles.
Yeah, that was probably like the first one. I might have been SA1. I don't know that, but that was the first, I think, surface to air missile. And then they went on to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right.
Afghanistan.
So listen, I want to invite everybody who's on here. If you're a veteran, please, and you are willing to be interviewed by Irene, please email me. If you don't contact Irene directly, you can email me at Todd, TODD, at veteransbreakfastclub.org, and I could pass it along to Irene. If you know any veteran who might be wanting to be interviewed, I'll be happy to pass that along. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us tonight. Ida May, we missed you in Boston. Oh, is Jack Buckler still on? I think it's worth it. Jack might have dropped off. Oh, I think he dropped off. Darn it, because I was going to show a great video of Jack Buckler firing a cannon for the turnaround of the USS Constitution.
Show it anyway.
Show it anyway. All right, I'll show it anyway. Here we go. This was a heck of a lot of fun. Our trip to Boston, I didn't even get to it. We had a lot of fun here. Okay, I'm going to, I'll zip through it here. Jack Buckler. Okay, so this is the situation with the 225th birthday of the USS Constitution. The Constitution was taken out, it was towed out, and turned around at a place called Castle Island in Boston Harbor, and it gave a 21-gun salute to this Army battery on land at Castle Island, and then the Army battery then responded with its own 21-gun salute. Our own Jack Buckler, the minute we got there, he spotted these guns, man, and he said, those are the same guns that I fired in Vietnam. And Jack, not being a shy one, kind of like, went over the barriers and went right up to these guys and said, hey, I'm Jack. Can I fire one of these? And they said, yeah. Yes. Yeah, we'll let you. And so they did. When it came time to do a 21-gun salute, there was Jack. Let's see if we can get him. There he is. I think that was the highlight of the trip for Jack. It was one of the highlights for me too, just to see him do it. That was great.
Did he get to keep like a souvenir?
Yes, he did. Let me tell you about that souvenir. He gave one to me too. And it's an empty shell of one of these 105 howitzer shells. I got to tell you, they stink. I mean, they smell bad. I mean, they smell so bad that like when you're walking around with one, like people are staring at you because you smell bad.
No, they're not. They're walking away.
They start walking away from you. And so I had to take them and wrap them in plastic. We were out all day. I was carrying them around. But yeah, that smell of cordite and sulfur. Oh my gosh, does it reek? But yeah, so we do have those souvenirs, and man, that was fun. And then we had another one of our vets fire a cannon on the USS Constitution. So I'll show that at another time. Chad, that was a great trip. That was a heck of a lot of fun. Thank you for going on it. All right. Hey,
thank you for setting it up, Todd. We all appreciate it.
Oh, it was such a blast. Larry Googans.
As long as it's getting late, I might as well, you know me. I just sent you another picture, the one I talked about. So just so you know, in the northern part of Laos that was called Barrel Roll, there's a road coming out from Hanoi was called Route 7. And it also came out with an area that's called the Fisher's Mouth. Out of that, one day, some F-105s were flying along the border of North Vietnam. And they did fire 2, as I understand, SA-2s at the F-105s into Laos. They didn't get hit. So now this is the classified stuff you never can report to anybody. So what the Air Force did is they could fire back if they got shot at.
Right.
So they fired 2 SA-2s at some 105s, missed them. The next day, I think there was something like 24 or more F-4s from bases in South Vietnam and Thailand to go after an SA-2 site and wipe it off the face of the earth.
Huh.
Now, again, I don't know if this is the one, but this is an SA-2 site. And if you look at it closely, those missiles are not there because they were all taken out because they knew we were going to come and destroy the site, which they did. It became a desert. It became a desert. Well, here we go on the classified stuff. We always had alternate targets. So if you didn't couldn't hit your original target, which I couldn't because it was gone, we went to our alternate target. The alternate target that our flight had was a POL storage area, petroleum oil, in Route Pac 1, which is in the southern part of North Vietnam. That was our alternate. And we dumped and destroyed that entire petroleum oil refinery as an alternate target. That was what, oops, sorry, we can't carry all these bombs back. So we did that. And all the other flights of 4 had an alternate target. Well, it didn't go over very well. It was, you're not supposed to do that stuff anymore. We didn't do it it was ordered. It was part of the flag, the fragmentarian order. But that's a BDU with all the little bombs.
Yep.
It didn't quite hit right on, I guess, but there was more. There was more. And we had pictures of it later. It was just gone. So some idiot in North Vietnam got pushed the button and shouldn't have.
So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you don't read about in the books.
Yeah.
And that's why we love covering this here. Jerry Gagins, you had your hand up. I'm going to let you have the last word. We are at 8:41 here Eastern. Jerry, are you gone? Jerry got sick of it and bailed. So I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Halloween, and enjoy the rest of your Halloween. I want to see you tonight if you can make it, tomorrow night if you can make it, Tuesday at 7 p.m. for a conversation on the New Guinea campaign. Good night, everybody. Take care.